When you first see Muhammad Iqbal, you think you see a man disabled and dependent. And you couldn't be more wrong. Muhammad Iqbal sees creativity and opportunity in any disability, and wealth in what we call waste. This charismatic man changed the way the world looks at the disabled.
हमने ये सोचा कि डिसेबल लोग कुछ नहीं कर सकता है, एक तो ये दिखाना है कि हम डिसेबल को बहुत कुछ कर सकता है.
For the last 8 years, this man has been working to create an inclusive and disabled-friendly society in Ladakh. In 2007, he founded Pagir, or the People's Action Group for Inclusion and Rights. Here, 35 physically challenged persons transform waste into value. Iqbal and his team pick up cloth scraps from tailors, they stop Ladakhis from burning waste paper, and then recycle the cloth and paper to create products that are sold in the markets of Leh. And in doing this, Iqbal is not just making Ladakh eco-friendly, he is changing lives. Polio-afflicted Eskarma Shiddup can conjure up emotions and motions on this sewing machine. He now earns over 4,000 rupees a month.
यहाँ जो हैंडीकैप लोग को थोड़ा सा इकट्ठा होकर के कम करके थोड़ा बहुत पैसा भी यहाँ मिल जाता है. इकबाल साहब भी हमारे प्रेसिडेंट है, इनने थोड़ा मेरे को गाइड किया.
Iqbal was born in a small Ladakh village. While his 7 siblings went to school, Iqbal was not allowed into any class. His first lesson in life was to fight rejection.
जिसको कोई एजुकेशन नहीं है, डिसेबल वही सबसे ज़्यादा डिसेबल है.
8 years old Rigzin was expelled from school because she was speech and hearing impaired. She now has teachers catering to her every special need. There are 30 others like Rigzin at Pagir.
1 to 10, 15 तक पढ़ता है मैम. ए भी लिखता है पूरा.
Economic empowerment was his first step towards social empowerment. His next move was accessibility. He had this ramp built so that the Leh Council building is accessible to the wheelchair bound.
हम आज ज़्यादा नहीं मांगता है कि हम बिग जैसा या डिसेबल को एक्स्ट्रा नहीं मांगता है. जो हमारा हक है, इंसानियत का हक है, वो बराबर मिल जाए.
This Ladakhi song sums it up. Respect the disabled, it says, for they have the power to fight their disadvantage. While Iqbal is now learning Urdu, his plans are for tourism for the disabled and a larger recycling unit. At Pagir, the wheelchair is always in the fast lane.
Yes, what grit, what determination, and what an inspiration, Muhammad Iqbal. Ladies and gentlemen, hello and welcome, and thanks very much for joining us on this special campaign of Veer that's all about celebrating men and women like Muhammad Iqbal, but it's also about showcasing the incredible efforts that some of them are putting at bringing people with disabilities into the mainstream. Now, this special initiative of Veer is being done in association with Thumbs Up, with Being Human, and the American India Foundation. This initiative, yes, will celebrate men and women like Muhammad Iqbal, but it's also going to campaign very, very hard to fight for the rights of the disabled and perhaps create an atmosphere and an environment where they can all lead fulfilled lives. But before I introduce my panel and my excellent audience here, we're going to put out some graphics that tell you what an incredible task it is, at least at the moment, and that's why that heading goes as disabled and excluded. Some of the parameters that are coming on your screens which makes it tough for the specially able to be included into the mainstream. Low literacy, high poverty, fewer jobs, poor health, and that mindset, that social stigma that is right at the top. Disabled and excluded. Now we call them by many, many names. Specially abled, differently abled. But here's why I'm stressing, this is all only semantics. They, in a sense, still remain that non-existent minority, that unacknowledged minority in a sense. Just 2.13% of our population suffers from some form of disability. 75% of Indians with disabilities actually live in the rural areas. 49% of the disabled population in India is literate, and only 34% people with disabilities are currently employed. And yes, that very, very shameful figure is when I'm going to take my seat and introduce this wonderful panel who are going to deliberate on that particular aspect and lots more ahead. Let me introduce you. To my right is Javed Abidi, the chairperson of the Disabled People's International. Next to him, Hemanth, the country director at the American India Foundation. Next to him, Rahul Bose, actor and someone who's running a non-governmental organization that is perhaps dealing with all kinds of discrimination. Suvarna Raj is on my left. She's a table tennis player, but she's done some incredible work when it comes to access to public spaces. There's Deepak, the Vice President, Communications and Public Affairs at Coca-Cola. And to my extreme left is Pankaj Dubey, the country head and the Managing Director of Polaris in India. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks very much for joining us on this show. I'm going to start with the basics, with living. With going to a cinema hall, with going to the post office, and how that is a far shot away.
I do totally agree with you that the one significant issue which has excluded the disabled people from all walks of life, be it education, employment, social living, etc., is accessibility. The bottom line is that if a disabled person cannot even step out of his or her house, cannot get into a public building, cannot get into transportation, look at our buses, our trains. So the rest of it is logical. Disabled children are not able to go to school, are not able to go to universities or colleges. Even if somehow they make it, the buildings are inaccessible. The technology is inaccessible. The bottom line is that if you are not able to access education, and Ministry of Human Resource Development has conceded that only 2% of disabled children in India have access to some kind of education, only 2%. 98% of the children in India, even today as we speak, do not have access to any kind of education, and then this country has the goals to talk about Sarv Shiksha. Yes. And if you are not having access to education, there is no question of being able to compete in the employment scenario, especially today when things are moving to the private sector, things are getting competitive.
Sure. You talk about 2% and what a shameful figure that is. But Hemanth, I want to get you in, and you probably know this better. Sometimes in the larger sphere, the dominant emotion when you talk about people with disabilities is sort of sympathy. Is that something you feel, that sometimes people respond to everything when it comes to specially able people with this notion of sympathy?
The Indian society is sympathetic, but sympathy largely comes from a lack of knowledge. And that's really the key point. I think a lot of us look at persons with disability more with a sense of sympathy and fear because we do not understand, we do not know. And I think that is the number one challenge that...
Tell us a little bit about why you say fear.
It's because anything that is unknown to you is a fear to you. So a part of it is that, and a part of it is also an attitude. It's a behavior, both outside, and in fact, if you look at the UN definition of persons with disability, it's not only the individual, but it's also the way they interact with the environment, the attitude that defines a person with disability. So as much as the individual is responsible, it's also society that is.
Rahul, let me bring you in, because you have actually, or your organization has dealt with discrimination in all possible ways. How do we actually begin to convert this sympathy / fear to support / empowerment?
Familiarity. Whether it's my grandfather telling me about how he used to be in the army, and one day he killed a soldier out of whose pocket popped out a photograph of his little daughter. And he said, that day I realized that war was horrible. Starting with that, right down to people with disabilities, it's familiarity. If I come to your house and I eat, and I find that you and I both like bhindi, then automatically you become somebody who I share something with. So I think that, and I think Hemanth is dead right, when we basically don't like the other always makes us feel uncomfortable. So we'll go into a party or into a school and immediately we'll hang around with people who are like us, who look like us, who talk like us. So what we have to do is this very intrinsic human fallibility of not wanting to go beyond your comfort zone, is what you have to break. How do we break that? So there's theatre, there are games, that's the easy part. But there are mindsets where you have to first ask yourself, do you discriminate, Anubha? And you'll find 5 kinds of discrimination that you're guilty of. So that's the inward looking process is where we have started from.
Okay. I'll take all of that to Suvarna. Suvarna, जब आप बाहर जाती हो तो लोग आते हैं आपके पास बातचीत करने, दोस्त बन जाते हैं आसानी से, कि आपको लगता है कि ये जो व्हीलचेयर है ये कभी-कभी एक बैरियर होता है?
एक्चुअली होता क्या है, जब जाते हैं ना तो लोग जब आते हैं ना तो यही सोच के आते हैं कि इसे हेल्प की ज़रूरत है, जबकि हमें हेल्प की ज़रूरत नहीं होती है। जब हमें होती है तो हम मांग लेते हैं। तो बस लोगों का यही एक नज़रिया, और जो सिंपैथी की बात चल रही थी ना, तो इससे मैं बोलना चाहती हूँ, जस्ट मैं गवर्नमेंट ऑफिस में हूँ तो एक थोड़ी बातचीत हो गई तो मुझे डायरेक्टर लेवल के बंदे ने ये कहा कि आप लोगों की सिंपैथी ले रहे हो। मुझे इस बात पे इतना गुस्सा आया था। मैंने बोला था अगर मैं सिंपैथी ले रही होती तो आपके ऑफिस में जॉब करने क्यों आती? सिंपैथी लेना होता तो मैं अपने घर पे बैठ के करवाती ना काम, जो भी करवाना होता है। तो दैट्स लाइक सिंपैथी जो होती है ना, वो हम नहीं चाहते किसी से भी।
Deepak, you've heard all of this. I'm actually intrigued, and yes, this particular show, one of the aims is to actually create a workforce that is going to be easily employable. But I'd like to know, why would a corporate like yours, whose figures are people like Akshay Kumar, Macho, etc., why would a corporate like Salman Khan, why would they actually be involved in a campaign like this one, or want to be associated?
It's very important that in such causes, it's inclusivity which prevails. The second thing which I have realized is that if you have to promote a cause, what we call is the golden triangle theory. The golden triangle is about civil society, business and government. When they put their heads and minds together, they can really come out with some very good solutions. For me, I think it's important as a corporate, as a brand owner like Thumbs Up, which is all about the realizing inner strengths, which is all about unleashing that strength. तूफान सब में है, पर ढक्कन खोलने की देर है. So it's to realize your inner strength, the tufan inside you.
Pankaj, I ask this with all humility, and I also know because I've seen the wonderful people that you are working with. But is there a sense that the corporates are also approaching this with a little bit of sympathy? Is that so, or would that be an unfair question?
Oh, I think it's an unfair question. I mean, all people are alike. What we feel is that we are all forms of energy, and the body is just an extension of the energy. I mean, to say it's like we are all souls, and these are extension parts of our body, and which may or may not function properly. But what we have seen that, I mean, all the people that I have interacted with or employed, these people go extra step because they want to prove that we are not limited by what you think so. I mean, I have seen people who have been employed and who say, I mean, when you start looking at them with sympathy or trying to do something extra for them, they say, please don't do that. And I see that, I mean, these are people who would go all out, extra efforts to make your thing successful, more than normal, ordinary people. But yes, you're right that the people employment is still an issue. I mean, the general awareness across is not that high, and I mean, programs like this will help.
Just to, Pankaj's point, I think there is also, if you want to look at data and information, there is proven data to show that inclusive employment actually makes business sense. The International Labour Organization has shown that by actually inclusively employing people with, disabilities, actually improves productivity, retention, and multiple other things start happening within a work environment. Let me give you an interesting anecdote. There was an organization many years ago when mobile phones actually were a novelty. Companies were innovating in the forms of mobile phones. There was an organization, without naming it, that was developing a handset, and what they did find was that people with hearing impairment could not actually respond to phones. That led to the innovation of the vibration mode, of handsets.
Fantastic.
Now that was an incredible. Now look what that did to the entire handset industry. And this came with people with different abilities.
Fascinating
Yeah,
example.
fascinating.
Thanks so much.
Makes so much difference to a business as well.
Yes, I think I'm going to leave this particular segment with that thought. We'll take a quick break here on this special show, Veer. But in the next segment, we're going to be joined by the campaign ambassador, Salman Khan.
I believe our cities completely lack the infrastructure that's disabled friendly. For example, ramps to get on to places, there's no way they can walk on steps. It's very difficult for blind people to catch buses, public transportation.
They are equal citizens of the country and they should enjoy equal rights. So, I mean, more than sympathy, I should say that they should be given equal opportunities.
Even though a lot of talk is done about acceptance, but then when it actually comes to doing the deed, I think we all sort of fall back. So no, I think yes, I think they are sidelined.
Taking into consideration their abilities, we should create educative environment. We should create infrastructure where they can work and earn their living.
Sympathy is not going to get them food or a job. I think you have to give them support, make them educated, make them independent.
I don't think they want pity, I think they want solutions.
Welcome back. Yes, you're with our special campaign, Veer, that's going to be brought to you in association with Thumbs Up, Being Human, and the American India Foundation. And today we're trying to set the agenda for trying to bring people with disabilities into the mainstream by training, by imparting a skill set in a sense that could perhaps make them employable. Let me go back to our guests. Why should we focus so much on employability? Or is that something we should focus on?
No, absolutely, because you see, at the end of the day, what is each one of us human being aspiring for? It's independence, empowerment.
Is the battle of employability or of something else?
Employability is what leads to economic empowerment, and ultimately through that self-worth, self-independence, all of that. I mean, if you are not employed, I mean, not necessarily regular employment, but some form of economic empowerment, then you are logically then dependent. So this whole notion of dependence and this whole association of a disabled person being dependent and leading them to the charity approach and leading them to all the other stereotypes is out of that. If I am not self-independent, then I am bound to be dependent on someone, be it my parents, be it my sister, be it my neighbor, be it some charity. So the only, and isn't that what each one of us is aspiring for? So then what's so different about people with disabilities? We are tired of this vocabulary that is thrust on us, special people, challenged people, differently abled, nonsense. We are people with disabilities. We are comfortable with the term disability. So leave it at that. Take us at face value. Give us our due.
Take us at face value. I think that's such a brilliant message. Hemanth, let me take all of that to you. How do we start that? How do we start that? How does the American India Foundation start that? How is Veer actually going to propagate that?
For a second, if you just leave disability aside, just look at every one of our lives. What was one of the most important moments in your life? One of the most important moments is when you got your first check, your first job. Now it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whether you're disabled or able-bodied or whatever. Economic independence is one of the critical things. I mean, I tell my own kids that till such time that you're dependent on your parents, you're not really independent. And I think that is what we're trying to do. We're trying to be able to create, and at the American India Foundation, we've been working on the whole livelihood space for over 8 years now. And we do understand that this is one of the most critical aspects as far as a life milestone is concerned. And if you can give an individual that ability, and in pure financial terms, it's like saying, I think we need to move persons with disability from being a liability to an asset.
To an asset.
And people need to see them as assets. Imagine a family where a child is, disabled, and they've always been considered a liability. but then suddenly they get their first job, their work. Look what happens to their life. Look what happens to the whole family. I mean, you know, it changes society.
जब आपने अपना पहला पेचेक आया था, तब आपके घर में क्या हुआ था?
सबसे पहली जॉब मेरी स्कूल में ही थी। मैंने बीएड किया था, उसके बाद मुझे 2 साल के लिए एक ट्रेनिंग करनी थी, तो तभी मिली। वो मैंने फर्स्ट सैलरी अपनी मम्मी के हाथों में दी थी। एक्चुअली बचपन में ऐसा था कि हम 4 भाई बहन थे, तो मम्मी पापा को सबसे ज़्यादा टेंशन होती थी कि तीनों का तो कुछ ना कुछ हो ही जाएगा, इसका कुछ नहीं हो सकता। तो वो हर पंडित को दिखाते रहते थे मुझे कि इसकी शादी हो पाएगी, ये पढ़ लिख लेगी, ये वो। लेकिन जब मेरी जॉब लग गई और सबसे ज़्यादा पढ़ी लिखी मैं ही अपने घर में, तो उसके बाद आज वो बहुत प्राउड फील करते, क्योंकि मैं जब इंटरनेशनल टूर्स पे जाती हूँ तो अब पापा बोलते प्लीज़ अगले टूर पे ना मुझे भी ले जाना। तो बहुत अच्छा लगता है ये सब सुन के कि नहीं, अभी मैं अपने मम्मी पापा की नज़रों में बहुत ऊंची भी उठ रही हूँ, या फिर उनके लिए कुछ कर पा रही हूँ, उनका नाम रोशन कर पा रही हूँ। अब इन लॉज के घर में हूँ तो इन लॉज को भी बहुत अच्छा लगता है। मम्मी को कोई कहता है बाहर, सासू मामा को, कि आपकी बेटी तो अभी बहू तो अभी अखबारों में आती है, तो वो बहुत खुश होते हैं। तो ये खुशी ही देखना चाहती हूँ लास्ट टाइम तक।
I'm going to speak to some of the people that you support at Polaris. But why would you support? Why would you, as an organization, support some of them? Do corporates go through this thinking about who you should choose?
If you can know that this person's ability is X, Y, Z, and I can give him the chance and he can do more, that is what is the corporate. That's what the difference between a successful corporate and an unsuccessful.
Give us an example of how your corporate achieved that.
We make all-terrain vehicles. Now these all-terrain vehicles, you can drive with only hand controls. You don't need, even if you are not having a physical disability in your legs, you can still drive it. So a person who likes to drive motorcycle, and he's passionate about driving motorcycle, we have one here, you can talk to her later.
Yes.
So she wants to drive motorcycle. Now you can't get it, you can't drive, but if you give that one vehicle to her to drive, which is a Polaris all-terrain vehicle, the happiness that the person gets is immense. These are small things. But you do this, and you know, you get, people become loyal to you, people respect you, and you can get anything out of the person.
Deepak, we're talking about biking, and of course we can't leave you out. My question to you is, you know, the discussion here has been so serious about employability, but I think that's also a stereotype that we have in our mind. We could never imagine that especially able people with disability, I'm going to leave that semantics aside, would be biking and would be an aggressive competitor.
Yes, because I was so tired of being looked upon as a patient sitting on a wheelchair, in spite of the fact that I'd already achieved financial reliance and won national awards for that. I was running a garden restaurant and a catering business very successfully, and yet anybody who would come to me and say, "Tabiyat kaisi hai?" because I was sitting on a wheelchair. And that really got to me, and I needed to do something very aggressive to prove a point that I'm all right, I'm happy, I'm physically challenged, but I love outdoors. Getting onto a bike and riding a bike among bikers was almost like reclaiming my life and soul searching from within. You know, trying to be the person that I was before I lost my legs to paralysis due to spinal cord tumors.
This sentiment that she spoke about getting on a bike, the wind through your hair, is a sentiment for all of us. Right?
You know, we're talking about treating people with disabilities as assets. I disagree. I'll tell you why, before anybody jumps down my throat. Hire Rahul Bose as a mathematician, liability. Hire him, perhaps, hopefully, as an actor, hopefully a small asset. It all depends on what the person can do and not. We all look at biodatas. And we all say, yahan pe isko dalna, yahan pe. So, all we have to do is to get over that initial, can he or can she? So, if you say, Deepa, motorcycle, we can see she's got the use of the upper limbs, she's using her polite, done. That's the only leap we have to make as a country, as a society, to look and say what a person, because we already do it with so-called normal people.
Okay, at this stage, let me bring in the man that you've all been awaiting, the campaign ambassador for Veer, Salman Khan. Thanks very much, Salman Khan, for joining us here on this show. Salman, you run an organization, Being Human, and of course it has partnered with the Veer campaign as well. What do you believe this particular association can do?
Thumbs up and being human, you know, right from the beginning हम लोग ने इस concept के ऊपर हमारा बहुत belief है इसके अंदर, और ये जो बीइंग ह्यूमन और थम्स अप है, ये वीर जो कैंपेन है, इसके ऊपर हम इसके द्वारा हम इन लोगों को स्पॉटलाइट में लाना चाहते हैं.
You know, is the need of the hour to actually train people and get them empowered to get the right jobs, or do you believe the first step also needs to be about changing the mindsets?
हमको हमारा लेंस देखने का नज़रिया बदलना चाहिए और हमें हमारी ड्यूटी है कि उनको जॉब्स मिलने के लिए हुनर की ज़रूरत है, स्किल्स की ज़रूरत है. All we have to do is provide them skills और बाकी सब फर्स्ट क्लास है.
You know, and of course the onus is on each one of us to actually come forward and participate in a campaign like Veer. Would you agree?
It's time for action, and I think that everybody sitting in this audience as well, I think they should all be a part of this. Onus ka time gaya. It's time for action now, dude.
And Salman Khan, before we let you go, I'm sure any appeal that comes from your side is going to have a huge impact. So what would you like to say to anyone who's watching this program currently?
सिर्फ 7,500 रुपए लगते हैं किसी की लाइफ बदलने के लिए. सिर्फ 7,500 रुपए. बस 7,500 रुपए दो और किसी की लाइफ बदलो.
Okay, thanks so much, Salman Khan. I'm sure your appeal has been heard loud and clear. We'll take a quick break here on this special show. When we come back, we'll tell you how you can contribute to this campaign.
We really need to start a revolution to say that if we call ourselves a democracy, then we have to make a space that is safe for all citizens, including the specially abled.
Change of this kind has to happen at two levels. It has to happen at the level of laws. So every company, every corporation, every school, every government office must have certain laws which allow specially able people to, treat them fairly and equally. At the same time, laws are not just enough. Social consciousness has to change.
When we travel around the world and look at what facilities are provided in other countries, then I have to say that on a relative scale, I think we have a long, long way to go to display the kind of thoughtfulness, sensitivity and empathy that we should for our own people.
We should be far more tolerant, far more receptive to these people because they are special.
I, Deepak Padukone, appeal to all of you to come forward and donate generously to this cause.
Hello, I'm Leander Pace. I'd like to request you to come forward and give specially aided people a better opportunity in life. With 7,500 rupees alone, you can create a life of another human being. Please come out and donate generously.
Please come forward and donate generously. It's a very good cause, and I hope that by donating 7,500 rupees, you're making one special person employable.
Yes, you're still with our special campaign Veer that's being brought to you in association, in partnership with Thumbs Up, Being Human and the American India Foundation. Now there's been lots of talk, but we're putting the onus at you. Any amount is welcome, but here's your chance to contribute generously to this cause. All we need, all that this particular campaign needs is a minimum contribution of 7,500 rupees to make one person with disability employable. There are many, many ways. If you want more information about this particular campaign and these efforts, you can call at the number on your screens. You can also SMS Veer, V-E-E-R to 51818, and we're assuring a call back within 24 hours. But not just the corporates, the onus is with each one of us. Let me try and broaden this debate and try and get in many more experiences from our wonderful audience here. I'm going to go first to Zorin Singha. He's the president of the National Association of the Deaf. Zorin, tell us your experience. Are corporates open to employing people who have a hearing disability?
Thank you for having us on the show. When you talk about corporates being open, I would say they are open, but I think what the issue lies is that they don't know how to communicate. Because when it comes to deaf people, the biggest issue for them, the biggest barrier for them is communication. So they don't know, the concept of sign language. They think that, oh, I don't think they can talk. So they focus a lot on verbal. They try to, lip read. They try to get us to lip read, which doesn't really work at all. So I think the idea would be for corporates to get in touch with NGOs, with disability sector basically, who have experience with working with deaf people, which can bridge the gap of communication, hiring sign language interpreters, or maybe through writing as well.
Great, Zarin, thanks very much for this experience. Let me just get in a few more voices, and I have, yes, you have the mic, and I believe Sanchita. Have you got a job?
No, I haven't got a job. The main problem which I face is when I go to especially private schools, what they say, okay, we will give you a job, but not as a teacher. And we'll give you something in administrative section. Or sometimes it happens that, okay, we'll give you a job, but we'll not pay you much. I don't understand why there is a discrimination. When I can teach people, when I can stand, when I can do everything, why there is a discrimination with us?
Okay, let me get in one more view and pass it back to our panelists. बताइए.
मेरा नाम डॉक्टर अनुराधा है. मैंने दिल्ली यूनिवर्सिटी से PhD किया. मुझे लगा कि शायद इतना पढ़ने के बाद शायद मुझे वो शब्द कभी सुनना नहीं पड़ेगा, जिसके लिए शायद मेरे बचपन से इसलिए पढ़ाई की शायद वो शब्द सुनना ना पड़े. लेकिन एक दया ऐसा शब्द है शायद जिसने शायद डॉक्टरेट होने के बाद भी मेरा पीछा नहीं छोड़ा.
आपको लोग दया से देखते हैं? मैं
जहाँ पढ़ा रही थी उन्होंने मुझे कहा कि हमने आपको सिर्फ इसलिए रखा था कि आप हैंडीकैप हैं, हमने आपको दया से रखा था. और आज मैं जॉबलेस हूँ, PhD हूँ, लेकिन मुझे उनकी दया नहीं चाहिए. मुझे चाहिए, मेरा सम्मान चाहिए, मेरा अधिकार चाहिए. अगर मैंने उनको बोला कि आपने मुझे इसलिए रखा कि मैं डॉक्टरेट हूँ, अपने सब्जेक्ट में मुझे महारत हासिल है, आपने सिर्फ मुझे इसलिए रखा, आपने मुझे इसलिए नहीं रखा था कि मैं हैंडीकैप हूँ. तो उन्होंने कहा कि ठीक है मैम, आप आगे से रेज्यूम कभी देंगे तो आप ऊपर लिखिए अपने नाम के साथ डॉक्टर अनुराधा गोस्वामी, हैंडीकैप.
Dr. Hemanth, how would you respond to her? How can we actually tackle that?
Two individuals, even with the same disability, are so different that you have to tailor it. And this sensitivity comes, and I'll give you examples of organizations and employers that we work with, where we have found one person who has been converted, say the HR head of an organization, who has got converted and sees the value of inclusive employment. And that person becomes the evangelist for the whole organization. And then the whole organization turns around. And that's why I think we are reaching out to people to say, invest. 7,500 is not a donation. It's an investment that we are making in our society.
Yes, and that's the call to action for every individual. A simple, small amount of 7,500 rupees will make one person with disability employable. And we are going to take out all those tags of specially abled, differently abled, etc. Hemanth, I'm coming back to you for just a quick understanding of how are we going to utilize this fund. What does a 7,500 rupee do for one person?
I think there are multiple aspects to skilling an individual, and it's not just purely giving a skill. It's being able to mobilize these individuals, it's being able to build acceptance, give access. The entire investment is going into multiple aspects, and the attitude is the single biggest aspect.
He talked about converting one person. Are corporates open to it? Have corporates been able to convert that one person who will then bring about a big change?
Concept about Veer starts, as Hemanth said, it's a trigger effect. It's the fact is that if one person can show the way, and that catalyzing effect can go on to the second, third, fourth, and I'm sure this trigger will carry on to 1,000.
We'll take a quick break. Remember, you can get all the information that you need about this particular campaign also on our website, theveer.in. We'll take a quick break and I'll get in a few more questions and experiences from our audience here.
डॉक्टरों ने मुझे बताया कि आपकी कंप्लीट इंजरी है और आप कभी भी चल नहीं पाएंगे, पूरी ज़िंदगी आपको व्हीलचेयर पे ही सफ़र करना पड़ेगा।
I was denied even to apply a job in a mainstream school.
People always thought that disabled are always supposed to be very sad people.
लोगों ने बड़े हंसते हुए बोला कि when able body can't shoot properly, how a disabled can stand.
It is all here. It's the thought process which is disabled, not the body.
हमने ये सोचा कि डिसेबल लोग कुछ नहीं कर सकता है, एक तो ये दिखाना है कि हम डिसेबल को बहुत कुछ कर सकते हैं।
नो कहने से पहले आप ट्राई कीजिए, अगर नहीं हो पाया तो फिर कुछ और कर सकते हैं।
My whole idea here was to now change the outlook of the society towards the disabled.
जो हमारा हक है, इंसानियत का हक है, वो बराबर मिल जाए।
It's all right to be on a wheelchair. It's absolutely cool to be wheelchair bound.
Welcome back. You're with our special campaign, Veer, that's being brought to you with our partners, Thumbs Up, Being Human, and the American India Foundation. This is our final stop, and I am going to once again reiterate that call to action of just 7,500 rupees that is needed to make one person with disability employable. We're going to flash those numbers soon, but let's get in some more voices, questions, and experiences. You want to say something?
My name is Anuj Jain. I'm from National Association of the Deaf. I'm the project director there. My job requires me to travel a lot and meet a lot of hearing people. The funny thing is that when I meet big shots, you know, companies, big shots, so a lot of them are amazed looking at me. They look at my card, they say, "Acha, theek hai, you know, the receptionist there, they look at me, they look at how I'm dressed. They understand that I can't communicate, you know, I can't voice. So they're like, you want to meet the manager? Yes. And when the manager looks at me, he's like, "Tum bol sun nahi sakte ho? Okay, you dress well." I mean, you know, you have that, they look at you with such awe, and then they wonder how you communicate. And then when we start writing, they you know, they're filled with such amazement ki, oh, you can write, you can communicate, you know, you can function on your own. And the funny thing is, they introduce us to other big shots, you know, telling them ki, look at him, you know, he's a deaf person, but he can do this, he can do that, it's amazing. So and we become, you know, positive role models to other people. And I would also like to state that I have a bungalow, and at the ground floor we were leasing that part out, you know, the ground floor apartment, and the Kotak Mahindra people came over, you know, wondering what to do. That and he said, "मुझे सुनने वाले बंदे से बात करनी है." I replied saying, "No, I am the head of the house. Talk to me." And that, I think, shook them up, you know, ki, oh, how will I communicate, you know, money matters, serious matters, you know, to a deaf person. But I did that. I'm not a graduate, but I am independent. I have economic independence, like we say. And I manage, we did the lease agreement, we sorted everything out. And the funny thing is that jitne bhi neighbors, everybody is so amazed, you know, they look at us, they're like, oh, okay, this is the guy, you know, he knows what to do.
I think you need a round of applause. Thanks so much. Thanks so much for sharing this experience. And I think I can say it with all honesty, you're a Veer here, and this is what this campaign actually symbolizes. We're going to try and wrap up this show, but I'm going to once again push that call to action of 7,500 rupees to make one person with disability employable. And just about final comments from all of you, our panelists, who have heard these incredible voices and these incredible stories, and who have also pledged that call to action about taking in more and more people with disability. Rahul, do you want to start?
Yeah, I'll fund 10. 75,000 rupees. I'll fund 10.
Okay.
So
excellent.
that's my that's the least that I can do. And what I do needs a bit of help. I need someone to teach me sign language for my next film. So I live in Bombay. If anybody here can teach, anybody from Bombay? Anybody here lives in Bombay? Good. So in that case, I would absolutely love that. So I've given a little, and I've got a lot.
Excellent. Hemanth.
It's not about employing a person with disability. It's about giving meaning to your own life. I think go out and do this. Find someone who's got the ability, employ that person, and see what it does to your own life. And
Do
I
it
think
for
that's
yourself.
the last message I leave with everyone.
Okay. Javed?
as we are having this show, and as people like Salman Khan and Rahul Bose and all the corporates are lined up here to support the cause of disability, we have a law, we have a bill which is pending in the parliament.
That's right.
Which could have been tabled and which could have been passed had the parliament functioned for those 2 more days. So on my part, in my 1 minute that you have given me to wrap up, I would appeal to all the parliamentarians, if they're listening to this voice, and to each one of you here, to ensure that that bill becomes a law.
In the tenure of this particular government.
Before we get busy with politics.
I'm going to go this way. Pankaj, first you.
There will be negative comments like Anuradha shared, Dr. Anuradha shared. So you have to remember one Kishore Kumar song, which is Kuch to log kahenge, logon ka kaam hai kehna. So forget about what they said. Keep your encouragement in and work hard. We are all there to support you. Thank you.
I would only say that if we have now realized that potential within has to be discovered or seen, this is the moment, and we are all with you.
Okay. Suvarna, final word to you.
Yeah. अभी जो गवर्नमेंट और प्राइवेट सेक्टर के लिए बातें चल रही थी, मैं खुद एक गवर्नमेंट जॉब पे हूँ, कॉन्ट्रैक्ट पे, और मैं जिस मिनिस्ट्री में काम करती हूँ वहाँ 300 से ज़्यादा पीपल्स है, लेकिन वहाँ पे डिसेबल्ड पर्सन सिर्फ और सिर्फ 2 हैं. अगर ये 3% कोटा मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ वुमेन एंड चाइल्ड डेवलपमेंट या अदर कंप्लीट नहीं करती तो हम 5% के लिए लड़ाई लड़ रहे हैं. मेरी ये सबसे हार्डली रिक्वेस्ट है कि प्लीज़ चेंज द मेंटालिटी.
Change the mentality. I think that's going to be the first baby small step that we're going to make. I'd like to thank all our panelists for joining us today, and of course this magnificent audience. Thanks so much. You've helped us all understand really what we need to do. Thank you so much. Well, that's all we could pack in here on this special show. Remember, this isn't a campaign, this isn't an initiative. This has to become a way of life in a sense. Over the period of the next 1 month, you're going to see many more shows, many more discussions, many more stories, inspiring to the core. Remember, it's all about taking that first small step. The special campaign, the special initiative of Veer will continue here on CNN IPM.